Hello and welcome back to the Trick Play Podcast on the Fresh Take Network. I'm Simon Chiskovsky here with Caleb Peterson, and shortly we will be breaking down all the sports-related news, rumors, and drama that you will want to hear about. This week, we talked about some NFL draft stuff. We talked about the Falcons drafting Penix and how it made the whole world explode, and as well as some other stuff around the 49ers and their wide receivers, them taking one towards the end of the first round and whether or not they will be able to keep Deebo Samuel and Ayuk. Then we went to the NHL, talked a little bit about the Edmonton Oilers mainly and how insanely good they looked against the LA Kings and what we think about their chances going into the rest of the playoffs. Then we moved over and talked a little bit about the Canucks, I believe. And then we finished off in the NBA with the Suns being swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves and all the things that came with that, all the interviews that came afterwards, and all the funny and funky things that the Suns owner came out and said. Make sure to check us out on YouTube, Fresh Take Network, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, as we have new content coming out every single week on each and every one of those platforms. Caleb, are you ready to go?
Absolutely. So the NFL draft recently wrapped up. We've already had a segment out about it. It was a little bit outdated, but that's okay. And we did a little mock draft, and most of the first 5, 6, 7 picks were pretty chalky. Even though we did that segment before the draft, most of it still held up. We got Caleb Williams, we got Jaden Daniels, we got Drake May. We got most of it. But the one thing that I don't think any mock draft had was the big shocker of the night, Michael Penix going to the Atlanta Falcons at number 8. There we are. I know we talked a little bit about it right before the podcast, but we were both shocked by this pick. We've had a little bit more time to digest about it. The Falcons had gone on interviews as to what their thinking was, why they wanted to draft him. So having this context more than a week or so after the draft, what is your opinion on it now?
I still think it's stupid. Mainly because I look at it from what Penix's reaction to all the interviews that have come out and everything. You got to think in his head that he's just not too happy about it. Because the owner outright came, I don't remember if he said 4 or 5 or whatever, however many years he said. It was more than you would expect to sit behind a quarterback. He's basically being guaranteed a backup spot until he's nearly 30, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It'd be a different, and this is the same thing I told you before. It'd be a different story if he was 21 or 22. He's 24. He's on the older side of the rookie quarterbacks, and I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Sure, you are guaranteeing as a franchise that whenever Kirk Cousins wants out or retires or whatever, you're going to be ready. You're going to have a guy who's ready to take up that job. But that guy is not going to be too happy with you. At least in my opinion. At least that's the way I look at it. I don't know about you.
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of along the same lines if it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially drafting that high. But I can play devil's advocate a little bit. In terms of the comment that the owner made, or the GM or whoever it was, in terms of saying he could sit 4 or 5 years, it's not that they plan to sit him 4 or 5 years. I think the most likely thing is that they'll sit him 2 years, and then they have an out in Kirk Cousins' contract, where they can get out of it with almost no consequences. That's probably what'll happen. His comment was more like, if we have 2 quarterbacks that both could start and we have to sit one of them for 4 or 5 years, that's not a bad problem to have. Which, I mean, yes, but it's also is a little bit of a misallocation of resources.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. I mean, they've come out and straight said that this is based on the Packers' way of doing things. And it was the Jordan Love pick that was made 4 years ago. They just started this year. The same thing. He sat for 2 years, and people just greatly questioned that pick. You've got Aaron Rodgers. Why would you do this? It doesn't make any sense. Same thing happened with Aaron Rodgers when Brett Favre was in the building. Both of those have worked out. It has about a perfect success rate. There's a couple things different about it, but I don't know. Viewing it through that lens in terms of this is a strategy that's worked before, does that change it at all for you, or do you feel like there's reasons why it's not going to be the same as an Aaron Rodgers or a Jordan Love this year?
I mean, it's not. I won't outright say that it's a dumb pick if you're just looking at the future. If you're just looking at how things might look 3 or 4 or even 5 years down the road, it might be a smart move. Who knows? Maybe in 5 years we'll be looking at it as, holy shit, the Atlanta Falcons are the smartest franchise to ever live because they grabbed Penix when he was super young and he came in ready to replace Kirk Cousins and all that. I just look at it as the fact of it is the complete opposite of what you were telling the entire league when you took Kirk Cousins. When you picked him up, you were telling everyone that we want to contend. We want a shot at this thing. And when you had a chance to either add to your defense or add to the weapons you could give Kirk Cousins, you instead chose to get his replacement. And, I mean, we even heard about it. Like, there was plenty of things that came out afterwards, including the Falcons, I think, saying that Kirk, unsurprisingly, wasn't happy with the pick. Because, I mean, exactly the point I just made. It's the type of thing where you are pretty much telling the guy that you just paid millions of dollars that you don't fully believe that he has it. And you brought him in not to win, but instead to get you ready for the future, which clearly he doesn't want to do. If he wasn't at all involved in the choice prior, then clearly that's not something, and he wasn't. I think there was something that came out that said that Kirk Cousins wasn't made aware of the pick until I think either before the pick or draft day. And I mean, you got to think that's immediately going to put just a bad taste in the mouth of the guy you just paid to be your guy. So I don't know. It's the type of thing where I don't like it. I think it's a bit different than the Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love situation because of where the pick is. That also kind of changes things for me because of the fact, I believe, do you remember when Jordan Love was picked? Because
it was like mid to late 20s.
Yeah. And I think Aaron Rodgers was similar. Aaron Rodgers was similar.
Yeah.
And
Aaron Rodgers fell.
Yeah, and that I think more than anything that Aaron Rodgers situation made it a bit more. Like if Penix had fell back to 20, do you think people would have been more as mad at this pick?
Yeah, well that's the thing. I don't think so. I mean, it was still a weird fit. I think based on reporting, Penix wasn't making it past 13 or whatever it was to the Raiders, wherever the Raiders picked. That was where the last possible spot Michael Penix was going to go, which is strange because leading up to the draft, I think he was one of those players where like the draft quote unquote experts or gurus or the people who put on mock drafts not nearly as high on him as the teams were. Same thing with like Bo Nix, and it's so many teams are quarterback needy where we saw 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12. That's the kind of thing. And if Penix didn't get drafted by the Falcons, it would have been 6 in the top 13. It sounds like. Lots of teams need quarterbacks. So I don't think there was a possibility of a fall. And the way that the Falcons put it is we're not going to have a chance to draft a quarterback this high forever. And I think their thought is with Kirk Cousins, we're going to be very good. Like they're betting on themselves to say, we're going to be very good. And the reason we take Penix now is because we're not going to have this top draft pick. This is we're going to be in the playoffs and we're going to be picking in the mid-20s. We're not going to have a chance to draft someone this high. Not to mention the quarterback draft classes for the next year. I don't know about a couple of years. I don't know if anybody's taken a look at that yet. But I know the next quarterback draft class is supposed to not be very good, especially not as good as this draft class.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the lens they're looking through in terms of like this is our only chance to do this. And while we have Kirk Cousins, he is, like 35 coming off an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
Why not grab our quarterback of the future now and have him sit? I think the injury history has something to do with that, too, where if you have a guy who is prone to injury, like maybe sitting him for the first little bit is not bad. I think that all has to go into their thinking on it. And it's not like I am with you here. It's not a pick I necessarily agree with, but it is a pick I understand the reasoning of.
Okay. Yeah, and that's fair. And that's a lot of very, very good points. I can't get past the fact that you can get elite quarterbacks at that 20 spot. It feels weird to waste such an elite spot where you could have brought in a guy.
Though.
Yes, sure.
It's much more of a crapshoot.
But so is drafting a guy like Penix here. Like it's you don't know how happy he's going to be with you in 5 years as well as the way that I sort of look at it. Like, I mean, if Penix is all in for it, go nuts, right? But
he's getting paid a lot of money. a lot more than he
Sure.
probably would have.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? That's fair enough. Fair enough. If Penix is happy to sit on the bench for 4 or 5 years, knowing that that spot is his, what? Sure, right? It's just when I look at it solely from the perspective of a guy like Penix who has started. He started in Washington. He had a very successful college career, and he thought that he probably thought that he was going to be starting in the NFL either in the next year or the year after. And now he's
Yeah, I mean it's hard to say. It's hard to say because he was like, I know, like I just said, teams in the NFL were higher on him apparently. And he probably would have gone to the Raiders and started there, but I don't know. Like he was viewed as kind of a fringe quarterback. Starting for him wasn't a guarantee.
okay. But even then, on a team that doesn't have Kirk Cousins, his chances of starting in the next 2 years are a lot higher. You have to admit
Yeah,
that, right? Like
that's
I
true.
think it would if I was Atlanta. I think what I would have done is if I wanted a quarterback, I would have taken one in the second or third round and let that quarterback sit behind Kirk Cousins. That would have made more sense to me. Sure, you're not getting the talent of Michael Penix, but you're still getting a guy who you can sit behind a guy like Kirk Cousins and potentially
Yeah.
develop into a player like that. I guess that's just the way I look at it.
The
I think it's a waste of a pick in a way,
the
at
one
least for me.
counterpoint I have to that argument is there weren't any quarterbacks picked in the second or third round. There
Oh,
weren't any quarterbacks picked in the fourth
well,
round.
never
There
mind.
weren't any quarterbacks picked into the fifth round with Spencer Rattler, where so the perceived I think Spencer Rattler should have been drafted higher. Like I don't think that would have been necessarily a bad move.
Yeah,
Um, I think the pickup Rattler by the Saints is a really good one, but especially in terms of how it was viewed in the league, the gap between Bo Nix as the sixth quarterback and Spencer Rattler as the seventh is huge.
okay.
Where we have a record amount of quarterbacks going in the top 12, and then we don't have another one until pick 150, whatever. It's the largest gap ever in terms of just pure picks.
Okay, then I
So I think
retract
that's
my
one
statement.
thing. Yeah.
Okay, I retract my statement then. I did not know that. But it at least that's more my philosophy when I look at it. It's just at that point you could have also if you're gonna draft you could have done that next year. I guess is more my point as well. You could have taken a quarterback at second next year or in the second round next year.
Yeah.
Like there I just don't see the rush, I guess. You you don't you shouldn't be in a rush to worry about the future. You just got a 35-year-old quarterback. You should probably be worrying about right now because you don't want to
I
waste Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins came here to win a Super Bowl. That's what he wants to do. And whether or not right as of right now, and we spoke about this when he went there, I think we both said that while they'll be a contender, I don't think either of us really saw them as a very, very big Super Bowl contender. I think
Yeah.
if they were to have gotten a really good weapon or somebody who broke out defensively, I think that changes. I think whatever they
Yeah.
could have added, I think that changes their chances, at least in my own head. I mean, I guess that's the way I look at it. You're just ruining your chance at a Super Bowl now for a quarterback who might make you better than you would have been in the future. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, I do think that's right. I think it depends on what mentality they had. Like if they are, like you said, like rushing to like get somebody for the future, and this is just like a pure impulse pick to be like, we need somebody to replace Kirk Cousins now, then I have a lot less faith in this pick. If
Yeah.
they really do believe though that like what they saw from Penix on tape, in person, in meetings, like holy crap, this is a guy that we need. And this is a terrible comparison to make because it immediately sets the bar way too high. But in
Yeah.
terms of anything that you go to and when sitting a year, the prime example is Mahomes, right? Where the Chiefs now hold up here. I'm not saying
Yeah.
Penix is,
Yeah. All right.
and I don't I think even the biggest Penix supporter will never go there.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of like the Chiefs did already have a relatively competent older quarterback in Alex Smith. The
Yep.
Chiefs just loved what they saw from Mahomes so much that they traded up to pick 10 to get him and then sat him for a year. That's the kind
Yeah.
of thing where
Okay.
I'm looking at this and I'm like,
It's the fact that you're not paying
is
Kirk
that
Cousins
kind of
for
the
a
plan?
single year.
Yeah, exactly. You're paying him, although it could be only two. I do think it's important to note that they probably will get out of this in 2 years. They probably will say goodbye to Kirk Cousins after 2 years, which, given how old he would be at that point, I don't think that's a bad move. I don't think it's necessarily bad to cover your tracks in that way. So I'm saying, like, to your point, yes, I think if they're rushing into this just to say, like, we need a backup plan immediately, if they're, for some reason they're so fixated on that. But if they actually really loved Penix and, like, are drafting him because it's like, this is a special guy who we believe in and don't think is going to be available to us down the line, and we have a plan for him, most importantly, in terms of how we're going to develop him, then the pick looks a lot better for me. It's hard because we don't know what their mindset is.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like it. It puts a bad taste in my mouth, and it's even if they get out after 2 years, he will be starting in the NFL at what, 26, 27 for the first time, assuming Kirk Cousins doesn't get hurt, right? Assuming something doesn't happen there, his first real NFL start that won't be, I don't even know, because Kirk Cousins threw away a game in the first half or like whatever, right? His first actual chance being the head of a team will be when he's 26 or 27. That's just ridiculous to me. Like, it feels like you're just waiting so long. And to that sense, I don't like it. And I think I'm just repeating the same point over and over. But I mean, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just a weird pick.
Yeah.
And I understand your point, because it does make sense. You can understand why they did it.
Differently.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's a way that I wouldn't have done it. I think it's a way that not many people would have done it, which is why both me and you, I think, had the exact same reaction, which was audibly swearing.
Yeah.
But it was like...
And I mean...
Yeah.
And I am going more for the devil's advocate thing, because I don't necessarily agree with it. But I do see the reasoning behind it. And I can definitely make the argument as to why they should do it. And even along the lines of the age thing, is Penix a weird quarterback to do this with because he was already considered old for a quarterback in the draft? Yeah, it is. But also, like, you say he started his first game at like 26. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Like, thinking about Jordan Love, I don't think Jordan Love necessarily had all the pressure.
How old is Jordan Love?
I'm sure he's younger. I don't even know if I need to check that, but I'm sure he was younger when he was drafted, or else that would have been a conversation too. But with Jordan Love in that situation, I feel like there wasn't nearly as much conversation around Jordan Love when he started for the first time this year as there would be around Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, those quarterbacks drafted early. And maybe in that way you take a little bit of the pressure off. So you get acclimatized to an NFL environment before you actually start, and then have to deal with all the media and all the pressure of starting immediately.
I just want to point this out. Jordan Love started in the NFL for the first time, or after, because obviously he started, I think, once or twice before he actually got given the reins.
Yeah.
But his last year, he started at 24. To really put it into perspective. Which is how old
Penix is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Penix is literally, I think, less than 1 year younger than Jordan Love right now.
Yeah. Which is a whole another thing, because he's been in there for so long because of COVID, because of multiple injuries, right? Yeah. Like, he's a bit of an outlier in that sense.
Yeah. And, I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll be looking down the road in 4 or 5 years, and I'm a big dum-dum because I said that making this pick was stupid. But it's also the fact that, like, what if they don't win a Super Bowl and Penix sucks? Like, then you end up sitting here going, like, what the hell? What was this all for? You wasted the 8th overall pick on a quarterback who played 1 season, right? In my opinion, it's just such a risky pick that you didn't need to make, because you could have. I mean, you even pointed out the injury concerns. Like, what if he ends up coming to the NFL and gets hurt, and that's it? You brought him up for like 1 or 2 years, whether, like, however many years, because we don't know. Like you pointed out, they can get it out after 2 years, but what if they don't, right? What if Kirk Cousins is playing great? What if you hold on to him, right?
Yeah.
And then you finally give him the reins. Everyone's excited. Holy smokes, this guy is the guy we've been waiting for. He's like 28 at this point, getting ready for his first real season, gets hurt. That's it. And I know it's more pessimistic, but I don't know. You could have gotten literally anyone else, and nobody would have. It arguably would have been a smarter pick, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree, but it is important perspective to have too. Like, everything in the draft, kind of a crapshoot.
Okay, sure.
Because I mean, the guy who they were probably going to take at that pick could also suck. right? Like Dallas Turner, maybe he's not going to be good with the Vikings. Like Latu, who knows? He also has injury concerns. Maybe he gets injured and
Okay.
then has to. I
Yeah.
think he was already forced to medically retire. You can kind of do the will they won't they game, and it goes both ways. And it is kind of a thing where you have to look back in 10 years and say like, now was that a smart move or should I have just picked what people expected them to? Um, and then on the other end of that too, you say if Penix turns out to start for the Falcons for 10 years, nobody cares, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
nobody
There you
cares.
go. Well, I mean, and then again, who knows? We'll see.
It's
Whatever.
impossible to guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I don't know. That is where I fall on it.
It was against the grain, and I
Yeah.
mean, I can't as in a world where like a lot of the especially in this draft where a lot of the first few picks were very like chalky and exactly what we expect them to do. Like I can't blame them for trying to think differently and trying to do something else. Another one of the bigger surprises on draft night, well, maybe not quite as big as the Michael Penix pick, was the Niners. Drafting Ricky Pearsall at 31 um, was not necessarily a position that we thought they would need, not necessarily the player that we thought would be going at that point, projected maybe more so as a day two pick. Um, Sometimes you get those players jumping up into the first round because GMs think higher of them. There was some hype around him. Still a surprise he went in the first round. But as much as the Pearsall pick I think is interesting, I think it is even more interesting as to what it says about the future of this team. The Niners have kind of been able to get by with this great roster because they're paying Brock Purdy um, not basically no money because they drafted him with the last pick of the draft. The bill's eventually going to come due, and there's been rumors about some of their wide receivers, particularly Brandon Ayuk, wanting out, and Deebo Samuel recently got linked to this as well, with trade rumors before the draft saying that the Niners could ship out either Deebo or Ayuk to move up in the draft. That obviously didn't happen, but with this Pearsall pick, and then I believe they picked another receiver in like round 3 or 4.
Yeah.
It's
Something like
obvious
that.
they're preparing for something. How realistic do you think the possibility of Ayuk or Debo going elsewhere is? And do you like them picking a receiver at this point to try to prepare for it?
I don't necessarily hate it. I think, I mean, at 31, no matter who you were getting, probably wasn't going to be necessarily the most incredible prospect on earth. You're still getting a great player, obviously, but it's not the worst move considering the factors. Like you pointed out, the Purdy contract, eventually that's going to come due. And eventually you're going to have to stop paying him the number that ESPN likes to bring up once a month. And I mean, it's not a bad move. I haven't personally, as someone who does not follow the NFL draft religiously, I had not heard his name prior. So it was the type of thing where, to me, it was a bit more shocking. But it makes sense, considering, sure, whatever the 49ers GM came out and said, I kind of take that with a grain of salt, especially with with wide receivers. I feel like, especially in the last little bit, we've seen how inconsistent they can be on wanting to stay with certain teams. And, wide receivers being divas is not something that is necessarily new to the NFL world. So, I mean, in a sense, I think it's a pretty smart move. I think, no, at worst case scenario, and I say worst at least for like this draft pick, you end up sliding Pearsall down into your third slot, third or fourth, whatever. Because I believe they have Jawan Jennings as well. He's coming back, I think, right?
Juwan Jennings is most likely coming back. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And
So
it's a good thing you pulled up the article on the screen there in terms of
oh,
what John Lynch said. Just a little wink, wink, nod, nod there. But it is a decent segue to talk about like what he said specifically, where he did basically confirm that they were shopping Debo and Ayuk. He said it was on the Pat McAfee show. He said, when you talk about guys like Brandon Ayuk and Debo, they're guys we drafted. They're guys we take a lot of pride in what they've become, who they've become. We couldn't be more proud of those guys. During the course of drafts and off seasons, do conversations happen? Absolutely, they do. We're past that now. So it sounds like it's not happening this year, but it was something they were confirmed in talks about, and I think that's really interesting, because eventually they're going to have to pay, specifically Ayuk, who's drafted later, big money. I believe they've already locked up Debo. Um, so it's interesting that they're having those conversations because they're going to have to figure out how to retool their roster. Every team that's good eventually comes across this wall where they're like, we're not able to keep everybody, right? Look even with the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs have been good for so long, but they had to get rid of Tyreek Hill, right? Like,
Yeah.
got rid of potentially their best player on the team other than Mahomes. Um, Even this year, they had to get rid of L'Jarius Sneed. But the good teams do generally find a way to keep themselves fresh with talent, and I think that's what this Pearsall pick is trying to do. And I know, yeah, he wasn't the most popular prospect in terms of like not hearing his name a bunch. I heard about him more so in terms of like people being like, oh, this is like a round 2 or 3 guy that could surprise some people and be pretty good, not a round 1 pick. So it was definitely a surprise, but I think it's generally a smart move.
Yeah.
As much as I hate to admit it, um, we'll see how it turns out. Um, if they get a good receiver at that pick, though, they're going to be able to trade Ayuk for a decent haul and just continue their run. Oh, like it's a move that I think can open their championship window another like maybe 2 to 3 years, depending on how they play it.
Yeah. No, because I mean, if this guy ends up being elite and ends up being your perfect replacement and much cheaper replacement for a guy like Ayuk or a guy like Debo Samuels, absolutely. Then you're in business. Because I mean, you're also adding whatever you get back for Ayuk and Debo, which
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, considering, I get a little bit worried about that. I don't know about you, just because of what we saw the Bills get back for Diggs. I wonder if that is kind of showing where the market for a top receiver sort of is right now, and that makes me a little worried. But I mean,
Yeah,
other than that,
I think they get a lot more for Ayuk or Debo.
Okay, well then there you go. Like it's just,
Yeah.
at least for me, when I look at something like that, I get a little worried. I think it kind of makes me wonder more. I mean, who knows? Maybe hopefully you're right for their sense, or considering we're both Seahawks fans, hopefully I'm right. But
No, I hope you're right. I hope they get about
yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
I hope they have to cut him, frankly.
And then the Seahawks pick him up because he sucks. Just really,
Yeah,
really
exactly.
sucks. Yeah,
We'll give
but
Debo a chance. I mean,
yeah, it's okay. It's not like
we'll pair him next to DK, and maybe it'll work.
Yeah, you never know. Like, I mean, he'd make a pretty good like fourth receiver. You think, right? Like, he'd be
Yeah,
okay.
put him behind Jake Bobo.
I'd sign him for $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you know what I mean. Did you say Jake Bobo? I had to think about that.
The Bobo
Oh.
hype is coming.
Yeah.
Bobo breakout season 2024. That's all I'm saying.
I just remember seeing him in the preseason and looking at him on Madden afterwards and seeing he had like 84 speed and went, oh. I was like, yeah, sick. Real next big Seattle receiver right there. Gonna be incredible.
Well, he was actually very good
Yeah.
for an undrafted guy. He's very good. Had the catch of the year. Catch of the year. If you go back and watch that catch. Better than Debo and Brandon Ayuk combined. Anyways, in terms of like I do think like I said, I do think if the Niners do that, I think they will get more back for Ayuk and Debo than they would for that the Bills got for Stephon Diggs. I think age is a big thing. I think recent performance is a big thing. I think those two factors
How old's Debo?
are partially what Debo is same draft as DK Metcalf. So
yeah,
still
I
relatively
guess.
young. 2019 draft.
He's
Ayuk, I
28.
believe, was either. Yeah. Okay.
So
So he's
Diggs, I in my
Diggs
head, I
is a
just
lot.
think of Diggs as being. Oh no, I'm wrong. Yeah, there's a 2-year gap. Okay, whatever.
2 years actually smaller than I thought it would be, but
That's about what I
even recent performance too. I think because Diggs had a little bit of an off year, and they were like
Yeah.
potential like character concerns. I think was a worry too. Not that we know
Yes.
anything about that, but there was rumors about that rift with Josh Allen. There's a lot of other factors that went into that. Whereas I think you could get a lot more if you're John Lynch, trading this guy away. The flip side of this Ricky Pearsall pick, however, is potentially neglecting areas of need. Now, as a Niners team that recently went to the Super Bowl, there's not a lot. But obviously, if you're going to be able to bulk up your offensive or defensive line or something, instead of drafting a receiver to that's basically it's the same conversation we have with Penix, just on a lesser scale. Like they're drafting more so for the future, I think. But does that put into jeopardy their operations now? Is kind of the worry. Like where do you stand on that? Do you think it's okay to draft a little bit more for the future with this pick? Do you think it's a little bit better than what Penix is? Obviously, because Pearsall's going to see the field, unlike Penix.
Yes. Well, I like it a lot more than the Penix pick for a lot of obvious reasons. I think the biggest one is where the pick is. I think the
Draft
fact that
spot,
it's
yeah.
yeah, I think the fact it'd be a lot different of a story if if they took a wide receiver at 8. I think we'd be talking about that a lot more. But
Although
the
if they
fact
got like Odunze, that would be
yeah,
at
exactly, right?
that point.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But it's also the type of thing where you're also just looking at it's two you're preparing for two receivers potentially leaving this year compared to Kirk Cousins leaving 4 years down the road or 3 years down the road,
Yeah.
right? That's mainly it for me. Like there's a difference between being over prepared and being slightly prepared. Cuz you're in this case the 49ers are using a pick to get a guy who at the end of the first round for when like what okay, as a comparison, what do you think would have been a smarter pick for the 49ers if they hadn't gone receiver? Like, what could they have improved on, do you think?
I probably would have gone with a guy like maybe a because they're I think their offensive line is the big thing.
Okay.
Where you've got Trent Williams, but especially like on that interior, Jake Brendel is their current starting center that's listed. Um, I've never heard of this guy before. Um, um, I don't know. Maybe he's better than I thought. I'm not big into the Niners offensive lineman, but even going with a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson, who went a little bit later in like the early 40s, was the guy that people were really excited about as an interior offensive lineman prospect. That would have been a pick that I think maybe they could have gone with. One of the other tackles, I don't necessarily remember who was left at that point. Just to start opposite Trent Williams to potentially take over for him when he inevitably retires at some point because he is 35. Um, those are kind of the positions where I think you look
Okay.
at and you're a Niners fan and you say, maybe that's where you can go elsewhere.
But do
But
you
it
think
is, I
do
do
you think
think,
they're completely missing out by taking a guy in a position where, let's say, they do keep Samuels and they do keep Ayuk, and all of a sudden wide receiver is back to being arguably one of your most stacked areas? Like, it's do you think they're missing out? Is more the question I'm asking. Like, do you think that would it be a mistake? Would if they keep both Debo and Ayuk, do you think people are going to look at this pick poorly? Is kind of the question I'm fielding to you.
I mean, it obviously depends on how Pearsall plays, but I do think your point in terms of draft position is the key to that question. Like, I am
Yeah.
more on the side of it being a smart pick. Um, just because I don't think they're missing out on as much because of draft position. Missing out on potentially a guy like Dallas Turner or Leatu Latu, like literally the top defensive player in the draft, they would have been getting because there wasn't a defensive player taken at that point when Atlanta picked at 8. You would have gotten your choice of defensive player at that point.
Yeah.
Um, but so you're not missing out necessarily on as much. But there are still good prospects in the second round. So potentially you miss out on something, but it's not necessarily as big of a deal. However, I do think, despite all of that, despite me thinking it is a smart move, I do think it still excites me as a Seahawks fan who wants to see the Niners fail because it's a
Yeah.
sign that their window
It's
is
closing.
closing a little bit. Now, if like I said, if they nail this Pearsall pick and he comes in and seamlessly replaces whichever one of these guys will eventually leave for cap room,
Yeah.
then they extend their window. Actually, then they've actually done a great job. But it is another risk to take. That's what the draft is all about, right? It's
Who do
taking
you,
calculated risk.
if you were a betting man, of the two, who do you think is more likely to leave?
Ayuk.
Really?
I say Ayuk just because he is younger, so that's obviously a reason the Niners would want to keep him around. But Ayuk has been the guy where there's been chatter about him leaving, where he's been posting cryptic Instagram stories, basically saying like, "Yeah, I'm out of here," like all receivers do these
Ah,
days. But there's just been a lot more chatter about like Ayuk being potentially unhappy. He's also the guy who has an upcoming contract extension because it's something I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that Debo already has a contract while Ayuk would be playing on his rookie contract. Yeah, Debo signed a 3-year, $71 million extension with the Niners, so he's good to go. Whereas Ayuk was not drafted that long ago.
No, he wasn't.
I believe he's still on his rookie contract.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, he's still on his rookie contract. So he needs an extension. Contract disputes are always the reason people want to go. And then with cap issues there, it would be Ayuk if anybody leaves. I found it very interesting that they were actually even considering trading Debo, which I think speaks to how highly they value Ayuk.
Well, and I was about to say, Ayuk is, I mean, I do want to get his exact age because I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I know he is very young because he wasn't drafted very long ago. Like 26? 26, yeah. So 2 years younger than Debo. That's a lot less than I thought. I thought Ayuk would have been like 25 in my head. So I guess that frames it a little bit differently, but I mean, I guess you make a good point on the fact that Debo is locked down. I think that's something that you definitely have to look at. I think you get more for Ayuk. I think, at least in my opinion, I think you definitely do, just because of it's an age thing. You're getting him cheaper, and all of those things are a lot easier to deal with. I think you could trade him to just the fact that he is on his rookie deal means you could almost trade him anywhere. Obviously, if you're the 49ers, it's not like your goal is to make the Chiefs any better than they currently are. But like you could pretty much trade him to any team that immediately wants an elite receiver to immediately take a run at it, right? And there's a lot of teams that would say yes to a trade for Ayuk, right? For a first or a second or what have you, right? There's a lot of teams out there that I think who would be willing to do that to instantly increase their Super Bowl odds. So at least to me, I look at it like that. I think in that sense, I think it makes sense. I think if you're looking at the two solely based on who you're getting more for, I think it's Ayuk. If I were looking at it and Mr. Ayuk wasn't already clearly unhappy, apparently, then maybe I'd be trading Debo, but I guess it is
it's
what
hard
it is.
to know. And
Yeah.
and I mean, it does sound like they're both staying because I think Ayuk has just kind of been all over the place in terms of.
I just don't know. Why would you want to leave? Like the 49ers
I don't know.
Like
I'm sure it's a money thing. I'm sure it's a money thing.
Oh, sure. But they're the one team that it's really felt like for the last 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. They have been the one team that has really felt like they've been due for a Super Bowl. And
thank God every day it hasn't come.
Yeah, exactly, right? But you gotta admit, like, if with all the knowledge we have now of all the things that have gone their way, does it not feel weird that they don't have one?
It does, and it feels great.
Yeah, well, yeah,
yes, they've been excruciatingly close.
Yes,
because they've made it to a couple and they've lost a couple because they've been in the NFC, and if they haven't made it, they've been in the NFC Championship game and had stuff like Brock Purdy injury.
I guess I just don't understand why you want to leave a team that has very clearly done very well, but yeah, whatever. Like
that's probably why, and maybe there's some stuff in the building we don't know, but who knows? I do think it was kind of just like a diva type move. It was immediately right after they lost the Super Bowl, I believe. So I'm sure that he wasn't happy with that. But I think he's come back around. Apparently, he texted John Lynch or whatever after they picked Pearsall and said like "fire pick, not gonna lie." So it sounds like he's back on board.
Oh, that's funny.
But who knows at this point? Yeah. Who knows at this point? And all that we know is like. There is some sort of commotion around it.
Imagine if Kirk Cousins texted that to Atlanta, like fire pick, not even gonna lie.
Picking up his phone, fire pick, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Just Kirk texted the Atlanta GM. Yeah, I talked with the guy that Penix used to back up in his first year in college, and apparently he's got a real warm ass. So I like this pick. This one. I think this will work out well. Yeah. So
hopefully Ricky Pearsall is a warm ass.
Yeah, that's the lesson here. That's the lesson here. That's what you want out of your 8th overall pick. That is a very valuable thing out of a NFL caliber player.
Make that a stat at the combine. Ass temperature.
How warm can you get a bench in -20 in Buffalo after 20 minutes? That's the stat I want to see at the combine.
Oh yeah.
That's what I want to know. Once we figure that out, I think we're good. I don't actually know if I need any other stats. That's what allows you to stay in the league for 20 years. That's like McCown and Fitzpatrick. That's what they all had.
Yeah.
That is the true stat.
Warm ass.
Warm ass. Right now, as of recording, it is currently Thursday, May 2nd, just to kind of add a little bit of a timestamp to this entire thing. So we figured, if we're going to talk about the NHL playoffs, why not talk about the one thing that won't really be out of date, and that is the Edmonton Oilers, because they eliminated the LA Kings in Game 5 in what was a very dominant series for them. And they just pretty much did exactly what everyone expected them to do against the LA Kings and looked very, very good while doing it. With a power play percentage of, I think it was 45%, a penalty kill percentage, which was something ridiculous. Something even stupider, I think. Like somewhere in the 90s. Like this entire thing was just an incredible masterclass of a series by the Oilers. And they've really shown the entire world that they're here to stick around. And I'm pretty sure I watched a lot more of the series than you did, Caleb. But I think watching it as a Flames fan, I can still sit here and go, what the fuck is that power play? That's not even fair. They have literally everything you could possibly need to... It's not even fair. Like, watching it during this series they have probably the best power play I have ever watched live with my own eyes, and I've watched Team Canada. And stuff like that. Like, it's just ridiculously stacked. It's not even fair for, especially a team like LA, and they are a very good defensive team. Like, they showed that multiple times. I mean, their goaltending is nothing incredible, and people made sure to point that out going into this series. And their goaltending wasn't the reason they lost. Their defense wasn't necessarily the reason they lost, and their offense wasn't either. It was the fact that they were playing an Edmonton Oilers team that was the most ridiculous thing ever. And I think after this series, my question to you, Caleb, to throw it over to you, would be, after hearing all these stats and watching the dominance that we just saw from them, even if you might have expected it, how much does this change how far you thought the Oilers were going to go this year and what your expectations are with the rest of this playoff run?
I don't necessarily know that it does.
Okay.
Because I feel like the Oilers having a great power play is not necessarily new. It's new to the extent of how good it is. Like, I think this is probably their peak form in terms of, especially in terms of all the stats you pulled up, especially in terms of like, because they've had McDavid and Draisaitl and even a guy like Hyman for a while, but like even bringing like a guy like Bouchard is really blossoming right now and is playing like really up to fully his potential. And I assume he's the one out there on the power play. Not that I haven't watched that much of the series. But I was pretty sure he was the one out there on the power play. I'd be pretty surprised if he wasn't. So I think that adds a lot to it. But that was never their struggle, right? Because with a power play, you basically are putting your 5 best guys out there on the ice and saying, go score. And with the Oilers, that's going to be killer, right? Like, they're going to go out there and dominate during those stretches of time. And yes, LA is a good defensive team. I do just worry about when the Oilers go out there and play a better team. I pegged them for the Western Conference Finals, so obviously I don't think they're a bad team. I think the numbers you pulled up are indicative of that, right? Like, they're a very good team, and I think they have the potential to get to the Cup Finals, and they obviously have the potential to even win the Cup. But it is still a worry for me, and it doesn't change all that much in terms of me thinking, if you come against a team like Dallas or Vegas in the Cup Finals, I don't know, even though that will still be an edge and an advantage for them, I feel like there's other areas where they will have to kind of pick up the slack in terms of depth and goaltending that makes me still worry about their potential future there.
Yeah, and I'm happy you brought up goaltending, because I think that is something I wanted to speak on as well, because that, I think, without a doubt, is their weak spot. I actually don't think their depth is a problem, because the one thing that I noticed, and something that was pointed out to me when watching these games, was the fact that the Oilers, and this could be something to watch, I will say, as we get further into the playoffs, and if they have to play in a 7-game series, like that actually goes to 7, is the fact that they were pretty much rolling 3 lines, in the sense that they roll their top 3, and instead of a 4th line, what they would send out instead was, it was McDavid, Hyman, and what's his name? It was another one of their wingers. I think he plays on the second. Holloway. That's who it is. So they were sending out that line instead. They played, I think, a total of like 6 minutes, like on average per game. So they'd end up playing 6 minutes. The rest of the lines would play their average time. So both McDavid and Hyman ended up getting extended ice times, and their 4th line pretty much barely touched the ice. Like, and when I say barely, I fully mean like nothing. Like, they were basically there to warm up the bench. Which, clearly it's working. Like, against a team like the Oilers,
yeah, but
that elite pressure that they were, and elite play that they constantly had on the ice, it worked. Like, but when I watch the Kings, just to throw this out there before I throw it back over to you, I see a team that isn't a pressure hockey team. If the Kings, and the Kings did do this at multiple times during the series, and they made the Oilers play their style of hockey, their style of hockey is a lot slower than the Oilers. And I don't think I have to tell you that. I think that's something that should already be well known. And there's not a lot of teams that can play the Oilers' pace of hockey. But I think a team like the Avs, or a team like Carolina, or a team like that upper level of like elite hockey, I think a team like that could really, really tire out this Oilers team. And I actually think when watching this, and since we've seen the Avs in their series against Winnipeg, when I look at those two teams, I actually think the Avs are probably the scariest team to the Oilers right now. I think Dallas and Vegas, because that, as of right now, that series hasn't been decided yet. But Dallas and Vegas, both those teams are scary too. But just matchup for matchup, I really don't like the Avs. If I'm the Oilers, I don't like the Avs, because the Avs are scary for all those same reasons that the Oilers are scary, except the fact that they have a better elite defenseman, and their goaltender is maybe not better, but I don't like Stuart Skinner, so I'm going to say better.
I completely disagree with the assessment that the Avs are the team to be scared of. I agree with everything. I disagree with the Avs for all the reasons you brought up. That I don't think anybody is going to outpace the Oilers, right? Okay. So like you just said, the Avs are strong as a team, and the Oilers in many of the same ways, right? They have 2 like superstar all-world players on offense in McKinnon and Rantanen, and then yes, you have an elite defenseman. Like, they are going to be a great scoring team, and we've seen the Avs run up the score, especially in that first round series against Winnipeg. What I'm scared of is teams like Dallas and Vegas, who don't necessarily play the same style, and who I think would be more likely to drag Edmonton out to a 7-game series. Not to say that I think a series between Colorado and Edmonton wouldn't be potentially a 7-game series, but I think I can just see Dallas or Vegas grinding them down a lot more. And then your point about not having a 4th line is where that issue comes up, right? Where I think it just comes back to me, the series that Edmonton had against, I believe it was the Jets a few years ago, where they had this game go into like multiple overtimes, and you saw them like basically kill Darnell Nurse by having him play like 2 hours basically, because I don't remember who was coaching them at the time, because they've gone through a couple, but whoever was coaching the Oilers at the time basically just like didn't trust his 3rd or 4th line at all, and you could see it take a toll on these guys. So that's why I think when teams that are more, not saying I think this is a much better and deeper Oilers roster, to your point, but when I see a team like Dallas and Vegas who is more battle tested, and I think also generally like power play more disciplined in the playoffs, which may potentially be an issue, I think that's when it becomes an issue. Okay. That's why those teams are a little bit scarier for me. I agree with everything else you said. I just think the teams they should watch out for are different for those exact reasons.
Okay, and that's fair. I think you made a lot of good points there. I do agree with you, actually, looking at it like that. I don't think that a lot of teams can keep up with the Oilers. I I more made the comparison with the Avs because I think if anybody can, it's probably them. Like even when I threw a team in like Carolina, I still think the Avs have a higher pace. I I more mean in the sense that it will be that pace in between the Avs and the Oilers. It will be that pace for the entire game. And out of the two of them, I think the Avs have probably the better depth, and probably are. I'd have to look. I don't have the Avs line times and all that in front of me, but I'm assuming the Avs are running 4 lines. Is more what I mean by that, and probably more comfortable running 4 lines. When the Oilers are playing a team like the Kings, who have a more defensive style and a slower pace, they were not afraid to run 3 lines, basically, right? So when I look at it like that, at least to me, and I actually don't disagree with you on a lot of that. I think against a team like, I guess my only argument, I guess, is against a team like Dallas and a team like Vegas, I don't think the Oilers would have to change a lot. I think their strategy going into a series like that is very similar. I think against the Avs, you have to run 4 lines, is more what I mean. I think things change a bit more because you know that that's going to be a very tiresome series. I do actually like your point a lot on the discipline thing, because I think that's a really interesting idea as well, because we do know now when you're playing the Oilers, you have to stay out of the box at all costs. You can't take any penalties. And we even saw that with LA. I remember the second they were playing a very disciplined hockey game, the second someone went in the box, you were like, well, shoot.
Yeah, it was like that 1-0 game, right? Where it was like both teams had one power play, and the one power play Edmonton had, they scored on, and LA didn't, and that was the difference in the game.
And it was the type of thing where that was the one game as well. That was Stuart Skinner's shutout, which I also wanted to say because I saw some people on Twitter saying Stuart Skinner coming out party or whatever, where it was all that. No, he didn't have a good game. LA sucked that game. They were hard to watch. Like that Stuart Skinner is the type of goalie where if you have a good defense, he can look good, but and this is a comment that someone else made to me that I think really reigns true with his style. He is a blocking goaltender. He is someone who, on outside shots, he can get in front of them because he is a big boy and he will get in front of them and block them. But if he is forced to make multiple saves in a sequence, you're going to score on him 9 times out of 10 because he doesn't really have that elite style. He's not like that agile. He's not that athletic. He's like I said, a blocking goaltender, right? And I think that's very true if you watch him play. So I think if Edmonton's defense can look as good as they did as in a couple of the games against the Kings, I won't say all, but if they can look as good as they did in a few of those games, I keep changing my words because I keep looking down at the scores and I keep seeing 5-4 and 7-4, so I keep changing my opinion on the fly. But I think if their defense can look as good as they did, for example, in that 1-0 game, in that 6-1 game, I think it makes it really tough for whatever team they play. The Canucks eliminated Nashville, right? I'm not tripping on that.
No, they haven't.
Oh,
so shoot. That was going to be my next question, because I was going to say, speaking of teams with potential goaltending concerns, because we talk about Colorado and Dallas and Vegas, who are the other teams that are still left. The other teams that are still left that we haven't talked about are Vancouver or potentially Nashville. Yeah. Obviously, Vancouver is the favorite to move on. They have a 1-game lead, but it's 3-2. Nashville can still come back.
Yeah.
Do either of those teams give?
What series?
Yeah. I mean, it was 3-1. It was 3-1 at one point.
Oh, it was. Never mind. I'm tripping balls. It was New York that ended their series. For some reason I was thinking of the Canucks. Whatever. Yeah. No, I see your point.
No. But either way, whether it is Vancouver or Nashville, I know we haven't talked about them as much. Do you think they have a chance at all to stop the Oilers, or it in your mind is it kind of a straight to the Western Conference Final, whoever they play there? Kind of
I am not very high on the Canucks after this series against Nashville, and a lot of it is because I actually when oh god, Demko, that was a real big brain fart. I should not be forgetting his name. But when Demko went down, I was actually one of the people going, okay, hold on. They're not dead yet. I still thought that they very much had a shot at things. I didn't know a lot about Silovs. And I think he's been pretty okay. I thought DeSmith, going into it, I wasn't that worried hearing DeSmith. When he went down, I was like, okay, Okay, maybe we start worrying a little. But so far, Silovs has been fine. He's been good enough, and that's been all they've really needed.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like in the game they won, he played fantastic. The Canucks got like severely outshot, and he still won them the game.
Yeah, and I mean, so far it's just with the Canucks. My biggest issue is just the fact that one, their goaltending has not been. Well, it's been fine. I guess I was about to say it hasn't been good, but that's a good point. Their goaltending has been fine. It's just going into the playoffs, we thought the Canucks were going to be that really big game-breaking team because of the fact that their goaltending was going to be incredible, pretty much, right? Like, that is what we all thought. Now we're seeing that that's not the case. They don't have incredible goaltending. I don't think their defense has been incredible either. I think that when you're playing with goaltending that is mediocre or even just okay in the playoffs, you need an elite defense that can keep shots to the outside and just let you make those basic saves and basically keep all of the saves that would force you to be Demko. That all the saves that you're paying Demko to make, right, is more what I mean.
Yeah.
You want to keep all those shots to the outside. I don't think the Canucks have really done a good job defensively to do that so far, and I think a team like the Oilers are really going to show that. I think that you can't have bad goaltending and you can't have bad defense when you're playing a team like the Oilers. So that makes me worried. I don't when I look at the Canucks, I don't see a lot of reason to think that they can beat the Oilers at this point. If they had Demko, it'd be a different story, but they don't.
I was going to ask. That was going to be my question. If Demko starts game 1 of a second-round series, does your opinion change?
He won't, though. Like, it's.
Do we have confirmation on that? Like, I know. I feel like the conversation around his injury has been very much like we don't know.
Yes, it has been we don't know, but it's not been we don't know in the sense that the number keeps coming down. It's been we don't know as in the number keeps going up in how long he'll be out. And I'm pretty sure the last thing I heard was that if he comes back for game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, that would be a pretty good situation. Which basically means round 2 is probably not happening. So I think it's safe to assume for that entire series, if anything, we won't be seeing Demko. So with that in mind, I don't like their odds. Nashville, I dislike even more because I think, not to be mean to Nashville, but I think in a lot of senses Nashville and LA are not that indifferent of teams. I guess in the sense the only thing that I'd really give Nashville is they do have elite goaltending because Saros really has been very, very good in this series against the Canucks in all the games I've gone to watch. So in that sense, I think they'd be tougher than the Kings. I'd give Nashville that.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it matters. I think the Oilers can beat either of them. I think the Canucks are the harder team, though. I think that they are better overall. Not having Demko sucks, man. I wanted the Canucks to really, really do good, especially since Winnipeg's out now. Canucks instantly becomes the next team that I would have wanted to do well. But God, the Oilers look so good this year, and it's so frustrating too. Because I mean, we're both Flames fans here. I mean, I don't think either of us want to see the Oilers do this well, but part of me, as much as I hate the Oilers, when I watch a power play that good, it's just the type of thing where, as somebody who just loves the sport and loves to see the elite play in it, holy fuck. Like, it is legitimately just mind-breaking how insane their power play is, because it's perfect. It is the perfect power play. I actually don't know what I'd change. It's that type of thing. Like,
I know what I'd change.
What would you change?
The colors on the jersey. Or the logo on the jersey.
That's
different
fair.
team.
That's fair. But, like, I just mean, like, fundamentally, you have everything you need to basically make the perfect power play. Take the Oilers logo off, and I'd arguably say it's the best power play of all time.
Wow, that's a bold claim.
Yeah,
that's a bold claim. Put that on the
oh
graphic.
God, I think I'd get roasted to shreds for that one. But like, and that there definitely is some bias on that one as well, where it's what's the word, recency bias. But at least like bias, in my here's your quote. I'll rephrase it a little bit. In my, how old am I? 15 years of watching? No. 16 years of watching hockey. This Oilers power play is the best power play I've ever seen. Throw that on a that
Put that in the card, and I'll throw in the comments what you said before this, just so people know.
Okay. I mean, like, to devil's advocate against myself, I mean, the Oilers won with Wayne Gretzky, Yari Curry, and Paul Coffey was, just okay. But just okay. Just okay.
Could do better.
Could do better. Could do better.
Needed one more Hall of Famer.
Yeah, well, there you go, right? Because Zach Hyman's a Hall of Famer, right, guys?
Could be.
Don't you fucking say that. Not in my Hall of Fame.
We don't know. I mean, you scored 50 goals this season. I don't know. That's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah, that's true. If you wanna talk about one last final thing before we wrap up this segment, Zach Hyman is, and this has been the thing that everyone's talked about, but isn't Zach Hyman kind of like the perfect line mate for McDavid? If you just look at it, it's just perfect. You have your Shaq Hyman in the paint, and you got your guy who can just kind of my description of McDavid's offensive style is this. Just imagine this is the zone. Much. This is the zone. This is McDavid. This is Hyman. That's it. That's why the Oilers win. Yeah, and then Hyman scores 50 goals. McDavid gets 100 assists, and everyone's happy except for Flames fans. We all want to die, but that's okay.
That's true.
Who cares about us anyway?
Probably the biggest takeaway from this segment is the gritted teeth that we have to do this segment through.
Amen to that, huh? Hey, but that's Celebrini guy, right? The Flames are gonna get him, right? Right?
Oh boy.
Right?
Oh boy.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Right?
You can live in your delusions a little bit.
Celebrini's coming to Calgary. No. Think about it like this though. Why? Sure, I know the Sharks have the number one pick, but just hear me out on this one, okay? Hear me out. This is a conspiracy theory. This is now becoming conspiracy theories with Simon. Why would Bettman want to give the first overall pick and a potential franchise player to a team that's in California, where there's a ton of money, it's warm weather, it's another market that hasn't really been tapped into in the last 5 years, when he could give it to Alberta? He could give it to this incredible province that is known for cowboy hats and oil. Why would you go to San Jose when you could go to Calgary?
Yeah. Why would you go to a metro area that probably has about 5 times Calgary's population? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. He's coming here.
I think you've got me on board with this one.
But Caleb, the Blue Ring or something, Calgary though. Calgary's cool. We've got.
And I mean, we know Bettman doesn't like American markets, right? He loves Canadian markets.
Hey, Bettman, I just thought I'd let you know this. Calgary has a really good fly fishing river, and I bet Celebrini would love that. Just saying.
Macklin Celebrini, big
Beaches?
Fly fishers. Simon Jaskowski, media insider, bringing it to you first.
Well, I didn't say anything. I said he could be. He'd come to Calgary and go, you know what?
Looks like a fly fisher guy.
Me and Celebrini go fly fishing. That's Celebrini looks like a big fly fishing guy. Is that what you said? yeah, throw that.
Put that on a quote
card or whatever. Yeah, there you go. Oh. If we don't get at least Tijiginla, I'm going to be very mad with the Flames. When did this become about the Flames? It's because we were talking about the Flames.
It always does. It always does.
We need to get Anand again. I miss his positive energy about the Flames.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need some Anand energy on this.
I feel so bad because he's always so optimistic, and we're always.
It was really
We've been through 10 years of hell.
Right? No, we need to. I'm actually going to be working with Anand fairly soon here, I think. So maybe I'll pitch it to him. I'll see if maybe we should get Anand on for a wrap up. What a guy! Anand's a hell of a dude.
Anand shout out. Anand shout out.
Yeah, we should get Anand back on here. That's the lesson. That's the end thing that you should take away from this segment. Should go check out. Stop watching Trick Play. What the hell are you doing? Go watch Anand.
Yeah.
There you go. So, we are going to be doing our Once in a Blue Moon NBA segment. Ooh, every NBA fan just went, wow. Get excited, guys. We're talking about the Phoenix Suns because they
don't mention that. Don't mention that to the MLB fans.
Oh yeah, no. The MLB fans.
They're gonna get
the MLB fans are so deprived at this point that. Hey, Caleb, we can make a promise here. Okay? The next time Shohei. No. That's not the promise I was gonna make. I was gonna say
ranking the Fanatics uniforms from how likely I would be to burn it in a trash fire.
We should actually do that. That is actually a great segment. Oh, put that on the
uniform
list.
Changes from how much they want me to, how much they make me want to pull my teeth out.
Yeah. We can call them the plier rankings. It'll be great.
We know the show.
Everybody loves a segment. Everybody loves it. It is well known that everyone in the YouTube world loves a segment based on at-home dentistry. It is true, or what's it called? DIY dentistry. There you go. Yeah. Anyway, we're talking about the Phoenix Suns. And their entire thing on them sucking. There we go. There's your intro. Fuck off. I don't care. The Phoenix Suns got swept out of the first round, despite having Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, like that one center on Portland for like ever. I don't even remember his name anymore. Oh shoot, I need to watch more NBA, man. Whatever. Anyway, the Suns just pretty much this entire thing is just the main reason we're talking about is their owner. Their owner came out here and pretty much said that he doesn't think anything's wrong with this team. He thinks it's perfect. He thinks that everything what did he say again? That he thinks that 26 out of 29 go nuts.
Yeah. So is it the one you just said? Like 26 NBA. I don't have that exact quote, but it was something along the lines of 26 NBA GMs would trade their whole team for our whole team. Yeah. And the other thing he said that I do have the quote for is he said, "The narrative that the house is burning is incorrect. The Phoenix Suns are doing great, excellent. Not as good as we want to be, not as good as we're going to do next year, and that's what we're going to figure out. Well, we've got to tweak, modify, and adjust to win a championship next year."
Yeah, and
that's the full quote.
Yeah, and clearly and he also came out and said that some stuff about Frank Vogel, about whether or not, or the thing I have right in front of me is that he declined to say whether the team would be retaining Frank Vogel. And, I mean, when I look at this, I don't know about you, when I look at this whole thing with the Suns, at least to me, I think something has to change. There were some comments that Kevin Durant came out and said that he didn't think he was being utilized well. He didn't think, like...
Yeah, I heard about that.
Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff with this Phoenix Suns team. It's the same issue that we see every single team that tries to put three very good stars who individually are incredibly talented on the same team. It doesn't really work. Spoiler alert. It doesn't.
Where there's just not a role for him. I think that was the issue. Where they're trying to fit a player like Bradley Beal into a role he's not comfortable with.
And that was the same thing with Kevin Durant. I think the exact comment was that he felt like he was being relegated to the corner, which is not what Kevin Durant really should be. He can shoot from the corner. Absolutely. Kevin Durant, excellent corner three-point shooter. Is that what made him arguably the best scorer of the 2010s and some of the 2020s? Absolutely not. Kevin Durant is elite at doing Kevin Durant things, which is basically fading through the middle, taking those stupid three-point shots, and all of the things that Kevin Durant is just spectacular at doing because he's a 6'10" monster. It's just... And that's... When you don't let Kevin Durant do that, you're not going to get the most out of him. And when you have a stacked team like this, when you have a team that he's not going to be the number one option, in any other situation other than the Warriors had, in my opinion, the best possible, what's the word? Super team, right? Because of the fact that they had pretty much a guy for every single little thing. Curry is the big star. He's the number one option. I'm tripping all over my words. I'm tired. I need caffeine. You know what I mean. Curry's the big star. He's the three-point shooter. He's your point guard. Shooting guard, Klay Thompson. He's your guy who's never going to dribble the ball. He's a great defender. He can shoot threes from everywhere. Kevin Durant's your guy he's your second best scorer. He can do everything. Power forward, you have Draymond Green, Defensive Player of the Year, excellent player, slide in any center. And I mean any center. We saw that. Literally anybody. And it works. That is how they were able to pull it off, right? They didn't have three guys who were all scorers. Devin Booker, elite scorer. Bradley Beal, elite scorer. Kevin Durant, elite scorer. And then after that, as somebody who is doesn't watch as much NBA anymore, I don't even know. I don't know who's next on that depth chart. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't match up well. So, at least to me, I look at it as, I think you got to change something. You got to move at least one of those big three. And,
yeah.
I mean, contracts makes it tough. Contracts do make it tough. So, I don't know. I don't know what the situation like that or with that looks like, but I don't know. To me, you got to do something.
And I mean, like, in terms of moving one of the big three, I do think that is probably what you have to do, because I think a couple things based on what you just said. I think number one, you're right in terms of like the reason we've seen so many super teams fail is because teams go for more of a collection of names to put on the promotional poster at the start of the year than an actual team, right? It's a lot more like a lot of these super teams, on aside from a few examples such as like the Golden State team, or even the like early 2010s Miami Heat with like LeBron, Bosh, and Wade, where that really started. We haven't seen those teams have a lot of success, and it's been a lot more about like preseason hype, especially more recently, where teams have started to move away from just gathering big names, because it's more about how they fit together and how they operate as a team. Where it's like the Nuggets are probably like defending champion. They aren't built like a super team. They have Jokic as their superstar, but otherwise it's guys who are just really good at the roles they play. And that's not what the Suns were. Like, as a pure, like, overall, if you just stacked up pure overall basketball talent in terms of, like, these players being at the peak of their careers and just, like, how good are they? We don't care about how well they play together. How good are they? The Suns are probably, like, better than the Nuggets in that regard, but the Nuggets are probably going to make another trip to the NBA Finals, if not make a run for it, where the Suns didn't even win a playoff game. That's the difference, is that's not what matters. The other thing in terms of making a move for one of these big three, and how that loops in with what the owner was saying, is he's a second-year owner, and it sounds like, I mean, just reading the score article, it does sound like he's fairly disconnected from the team in terms of I'll see what they had here in terms of him splitting his time between Michigan and Arizona, so he's not always in the building. And there is worry about how much influence a lot of like newer owners have. We see that in the NFL with David Tepper, where he's like going into Carolina sports bars and like fighting people because they have signs that hurt his feelings outside. I'm not saying he's quite that, but there is a kind of thing of like new owners don't necessarily know what to do, and it sounds like his fault right now is just being naive about saying like, oh, I'm just going to close my eyes and pretend that running it back will work. And I don't think, especially based off what we saw this year, where there's all this preseason hype and they didn't even win a playoff game, I don't think that's going to work well for him.
Yeah, and no, I don't disagree with you either. I mean, he's also just making a lot of claims that I don't know if they're necessarily realistic if you want to keep things the way they are. It's also stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of things that he said in these interviews that are very interesting. Like, one quote that I'm just reading now is it was the Suns GM who said that, which adds a little bit more context, actually. He said that he believes Phoenix will be the first team to maximize Kevin Durant's talents, which, in my opinion, is a wild statement.
At 36. He'll be 36. How many more years does he even have left? Right?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's more the fact, I don't think it'd be a crazy statement to say if the Suns had come out and go, okay, clean slate, we're trading Bradley Beal and we're trading Devin Booker, and we're going to get a real deep team. We're going to make everything work. We're going to trade for a bunch of pieces who are going to basically work around Kevin Durant as a player. Then it makes a bit more sense. Saying what you're saying when you say that is you are saying right now that next year Kevin Durant is the number one option. Kevin Durant is the guy with the ball in his hands whenever you need that elite scorer, right? Or whenever you need that. You're not giving it to Devin Booker. You're not giving it to Bradley Beal. You're not sharing the ball anymore. You're giving it to Kevin Durant. And that really makes me wonder how people like Bradley Beal and how Devin Booker are going to look at that, because it's it's really, you're just saying who's the most valuable in this offense. And in the NBA, when egos are everything, I don't know if that's necessarily a good statement to make. I'm going to be really curious to see what the Suns do. I think they're going to be a very interesting team to watch, because I think they need to, in my personal opinion, they have to make some changes. They have to do something, because I just don't think their system works. I mean, you pointed out really well, I think. I think the way I'd put it is they're an all-star team. They're a team that, on any given night, based on the skill, can score 140 points against you or whatever, 120 points. But can they also allow 130 points? Absolutely. Nobody has ever been a big believer in the defense of Devin Booker or Bradley Beal, right? Like, it's that type of thing. I don't know. Something has to change. There's too much offense, too little defense, too little depth. All of those things basically just mean that's not a team that's going to win much.
And that's the concern, right? Because like something does have to change. They got swept. Right? Like something does have to change. But it's just so concerning that it doesn't seem like anything will. That's a big thing with all of it. Because I do think they're a very interesting team to watch. But they could also be potentially, just based on, because I do think the whole thing is interesting just because of what the owner and the GM are saying. Where it's like, they could also be the least interesting team to watch, where they could just close their eyes and say, run it back. Yeah. I don't know. I think it will be fascinating to see which path they go down. I do think it's better to go down a certain path, and I do think it's also just disappointing to Suns fans. I mean, like,
yes,
it's such a letdown to go from all this preseason hype to have had contenders in the past like 3 to 4 years, where before they were more of a basement dweller, where you go, like, I believe they were up like 2-0 in the finals a couple of years ago, and now this is where they're at, and despite the roster seeming to have more talent, it's just such a letdown. We're seeing a similar thing. Not quite the same, obviously, because Milwaukee got a title, but the similar thing in Milwaukee, where you bring in Dame and you say, like, oh my goodness, the sky's the limit, like NBA title or bust. And it's not worked out that way, and the coaching change messed everything up, and injuries have messed everything up, and their defense is not nearly as good as it needed to be. It is a lot of, like, we're seeing these flat, like, I think in a lot of sports, like, flashy offseason moves often burn out in flames, but I feel like in basketball more than anything that's true.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what the Phoenix Suns have to do at this point. I think you got to do something different. I think you pointed it out pretty well when you can't stick your head in the sand. I think that is what they're trying to do. I think we are seeing that is what they're trying to do, which is, I mean, we'll see how it goes for them. Maybe it's the type of thing where all these players just need to get used to playing with each other. That's the funny thing with all these super teams. My one argument against blowing it up is the fact that usually they blow it up before any of the players have even been there for like 3 years. So part of me, if you want to make the argument of, like, it's their first year playing together, LeBron, Wade, and Bosh in their first year playing together, I don't even remember anymore. It's been so long. Like, they got swept, I think, by Dallas or whatever ended up happening. Like,
well, they at least made it to the finals.
Yes. Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a fair argument. But in that series against Dallas whipped their ass so hard that people were saying stuff like what we're talking about right now. Like, why are they going to run this back again when clearly they just got beat by a European man with a mullet and a bunch of depth players? God, I wonder if, well, maybe not the mullet part, but I wonder if that'll ever happen again, huh? Like, it's just... yeah, it's the type of thing where I wouldn't be opposed, I guess, to giving it another year, just to, like, let's see what happens, right? Let's see if maybe we can put a system around these guys where offense makes the dream work, right? But I think the main key thing missing with this team is defense. When I look at all three, and I'm not saying, I don't think Kevin Durant is a defensive, God, I'm tired. What's the word? Oh, Put a dollar in the jar every time Simon forgets a word. I don't think he's necessarily bad defensively. I just think I would not say that Devin Booker or Bradley Beal are good defensively, and that's where your issue lies. Where a team with an elite guard like Anthony Edwards, like all of those guys, I mean Minnesota right there, right? You don't really have anyone who can properly guard him, and that's a hard thing for a team like that because you just need to basically outscore those teams. And
yeah,
the Suns
and
can't really do that.
Edwards went off in their series, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna like try to pull up his stats in some of the last few games.
In game four, he had 40 points, 6 assists, 9 rebounds. In game 3, he had 36 points, 5 assists, 9 rebounds. In game 2, he had that's the Suns. Why am I looking at the Suns? There we
go. 15 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists.
That's an insane number. And in game 1, he had 33. So
other than game 2, every single time over 30 points, 9 rebounds every game except game 2, like it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of that is also just the fact that Anthony Edwards is him, but like
well obviously, but I mean, a lot of these teams, not saying that, not to downgrade what Anthony Edwards is doing because I think he's one of the most exciting players in the league right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, every team has that superstar, right? That you're going to have to defend no matter who you go up against.
And the Suns just
you're not. If you're not playing the Timberwolves in the first round, I don't know, you're playing the Mavs and you go against Luka and Kyrie, or you play the Sixers and you have to go up against Embiid, or whatever, right? Like every team's going to have a star player that you're going to have to defend, and they just can't do that right now. That's the concern.
Well, exactly that, right? Like it's just tough for a team like the Suns. I mean, they need to change something. I think it starts with depth. When I look at the Suns team, I don't see a lot that I necessarily like, and I don't think many people do. I think at least outside of their top 3. I mean, it's not necessarily very good, especially when you look at it like this. I mean, just look at here. I'm going to pull up game 4. I'm going to pull up the box score for game 4 for the Suns. Kevin Durant had a very good game. 33 points, 5 assists, 9 rebounds. Devin Booker, 49 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. Bradley Beal was the worst out of the 3, 9 points, 2 assists, 1 rebound. Basically just out there for a jog. And then just look at the rest of the starting 5 here, where Royce O'Neal, who played 37 minutes, 6 points, 6 rebounds. Then you look at Eric Gordon, 6 points, 0 assists, 0 rebounds. Right? And you start to see what I'm talking about. They only played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They only played 8 players in the game.
Wow.
Which isn't that uncommon for a playoff team. It is very uncommon. Like, here, I'll go to the other side of the board now. Like, Karl Anthony Towns, 28 points. Jaden McDaniels, 18 points. Rudy Gobert, 9 points. Anthony Edwards, 40 points. Mike Conley, 10 points. And then Naz Reid had 8. Those are all guys who had who are able to score, right? It's more that. That's more what you want to look for. You want to look for teams that can score across the board. It's not just 2 guys. Like, because when you look at it like this, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker both had elite games. When you have 2 players on your team scoring over 30, you should win that basketball game. But it's the fact that the Suns had nobody over even 10 that ends up leaving us going, well, great. Good job, guys. See you next year.
Yeah. That comparison to Minnesota is a good one. Because, I mean, you go down that lineup and there's, like, even when you get to, like, the 6th or 7th guy you've named, I mean, like, Naz Reid, wasn't he recently named, like, 6th man of the year? Like, there's that good depth that won them that series and is the reason they swept them. Even, like, Rudy Gobert with 9 points, like, that's, sure, he has the same amount of points as Bradley Beal in this game, but he's also probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's where your value comes in. To kind of to kind of wrap up this segment,
Oh,
I
did you just die?
would want
Oh,
to ask you this because
oh,
you're probably. Oh, can you hear me?
I can now.
Hello.
that was pretty funny.
Okay.
Let me
well,
just ask you this. 10-second pause. For a second, I thought you were like really thinking before you like said it, and then I realized that you weren't moving or blinking, and I was like, did he just die? Did he just die live on camera?
Nope, I did not. I'm
Not
good.
quite. That would have been funny. Oh, maybe he did just die on camera. He might have died on camera. Oh, never mind. You're back.
Am I still here? Yep,
You are still here now. There we go. Trick play, the most the most professional of. We use very professional equipment, such as TELUS Wi-Fi.
Okay, well, if I'm good here, I'll restate what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
if I am
do
back online. TELUS didn't fuck up again. So I'll say to wrap up the question, I'll ask you. Fucking.
Come on!
That one on the Wi-Fi.
We've been waiting.
Waiting for this question. Oh boy.
God, this better be the most crazy question.
It's fucking not. You're gonna be let down. But to wrap up the segment, I'll just ask one final question in terms of you're obviously gonna advocate for making a move to get rid of one of the big three to bring in depth pieces. Yeah. Which one is it? Which one are you most likely to trade? And think about what you're going to get back, too. Because, I mean, Bradley Beal has been the most, in terms of underperforming, but you're probably not going to get a lot back for him because of that, right?
Yes,
the question.
But do you necessarily need the... Well, no, to answer your question, Bradley Beal. But to give you my reasoning right back, I don't necessarily think you need to get the most crazy thing back. I think what you're doing is you're freeing up cap space and you're freeing up whatever you do get back, as long as you get a good depth piece. And honestly, someone who's very good defensively, I would honestly like a guy, preferably when I look at this roster, I like the idea of a good defensive guy who is a decent three-point shooter. And then a couple picks for Bradley Beal. I think if you can get that, the Suns are winning it, right? Because I think Bradley Beal, if I'm being honest with you, and I thought about this when we saw this big three be created, I think that Bradley Beal and Devin Booker are I don't know. I think they have too similar of roles at the end of the day. I think because they're both shooting guards who aren't very big. Devin Booker is on the taller side of the two. He's 6'5". Bradley Beal's 6'3". I just don't necessarily think they work well on the same team. Because I think they both kind of do the same thing. Yeah. They're both scoring guard. With Devin Booker, I say undersized, but undersized scoring guards, right, is the group that I'd put both of them into. And I think, I don't know. I think you got to move one of them. It's not Kevin Durant because I think he's been moved too many times. I think you get the idea with Kevin Durant. I think at this point you're stuck with him and you have to make it work. At least until his contract runs up. I also think
you don't want to trade Booker because he's probably the one with the most long-term potential.
Well, I was going to say you don't want to trade Booker because he's your franchise guy. He's been there his whole career.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think that you keep Booker solely because of that. And, I don't know. At least to me, I think it has to be Bradley Beal because I think Kevin Durant would be the hardest to move. I think Devin Booker would probably have the most interest, but I don't think you want to get rid of him. I think it's got to be Beal. He's the one with the least amount of ropes tied down to him. And I think he's also the guy who, I mean, at least to me, I'm biased because I've liked Booker since he came into the league. And when I look at the two, I like Booker more than Beal. And that's the end of it. That's it for me. That's not even a recency thing because I know, like you pointed out, Beal has been underperforming lately. And I want to point out the fact that even prior to his underperforming, I thought Devin Booker was the better player. So when you look at it like that, I think it's got to be Beal. But I'm curious what you have to say, especially considering how you phrased the question, which made it sound like you had a different opinion.
I mean, No, I would agree. I think it's just like I would agree, but in terms of it has to be Beal, but I just think it's interesting in
Okay.
terms of like you can make arguments for the other players. I think just more than anything, the question shows how fucked they are. Because
Yeah.
it's like
Well, all
because
three would be hard to
you're in a
move.
you're in a no-win situation either way. You're gonna trade Beal,
Yes.
who
You're
nobody
trading.
probably wants, who
I
was your
just.
big free agent acquisition or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know if he was a sign and trade or whatever, but your big acquisition of the summer, where this
Yeah.
was the big name guy coming in, and you're immediately saying, well, that's not working to pull the plug. That's not great optics, and you're kind of just going back to square one. Um, or you're trading Kevin Durant, who, like you said, like obviously losing the talents of Kevin Durant isn't going to be a great thing. You're probably not going to get a ton back for him considering age factor. Um,
Yeah.
and then trading Devin Booker, like you said, he's the franchise guy. He's probably the most talented. He's the youngest of the three. Like, and he's the guy who's been playing for the Suns his entire career. You're literally in a no-win situation, which is why it's just so disturbing that the Suns ownership is like, no, we're fine. It's like the meme
Yeah.
of the
Nah, it's
dog.
all
This is
right.
this is
Yeah, the
fine.
dog in
This is
the burning
fine.
down house. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
I think it's pretty simple. I think Bradley Beal is the guy to go. But I think no matter what, it's going to be a pretty hard thing. I don't think no matter what, whether you're trading Devin Booker, whether you're trading Bradley Beal, or whether you're trading Kevin Durant, you are not winning the trade. That's the tough thing. Whenever you're trading a star, unless it's the case like what we have kind of seen with the Thunder in the last little bit, where all of those picks pretty much turned into incredible players. Like I think unless it's a case like that, I have a hard
they're not
time.
going to get that.
Yes, exactly. Right. So it's just
They're
so
not
I.
trading Paul George in his prime or whatever,
Well, there you go. Right.
right?
And
They're trading like a 30-something-year-old Bradley Beal or a 36-year-old Kevin Durant.
yeah, and there you go. Right. Like it's the type of thing where yeah, no, that's exactly that. Right. I don't know. I don't have too much more to add on to that. I don't think.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this week. If you want more of us, make sure to check us out on YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. Um,
Whoa!
I was like, you're making a face, like you're ready for it.
I'm ready for it.
We
Yeah.
got. I mean, I think at this point I'm the most versatile because I already know
That's
what
true.
it is. Doesn't matter what setting I'm in. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
where I'm in. I
Oh,
can know
that's
that.
true.
Boom! It gets
Boom.
it right there. God.
He points directly at him.
There we
It's
go.
over
I got the right
there.
direction. It's okay.
You got the right direction.
It's okay.
That's true. I just know, you know the
That's-
way I
that's-
do it? I've got a light switch on the wall over here. I just know it's by that light switch. Put me in a different room, though,
just
I would have
know it-
no clue. So, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
you are the
exactly.
most
That's
versatile.
that's what I've had
Yeah.
to adapt to.
You are
Like,
the
if you
most
have to do the
versatile.
podcast in
You are the
fucking
most.
Airstream
Put
or
that on.
something.
Put that on a card. Caleb Peterson is the most versatile logo pointer on the
Pointer.
Trick Play podcast.
I'm putting that on my fucking resume. Like, give it to me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Professional logo pointer. That's how you get a job.
Yeah, there you go.
The logo we're pointing at is the Fresh Take Network. If
Yeah.
you didn't know, you can search them up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts.
It's where you find our. It's where you
we're on
find
there.
our gosh dang show.
Yeah. So go do it.
Yeah.
Anyways, my shout out for the week. I'm going to shamelessly rep my school,
Oh,
the
yeah.
University of British Columbia, who this past week in the NFL draft, for the first time in school history, had a player selected in the NFL draft, and that is
Yep.
Giovanni Manu going to the Detroit Lions in the 4th round of the draft, which is, as someone who covered the team all year and watched him play, is very cool. And I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast before, but like both Manu and Theo Benedette, who's the other guy he didn't go in the draft, but he went as an undrafted free agent to the Bears. Those two guys, offensive linemen for the Thunderbirds, have been like huge prospects all year. Lots of NFL hype around them. Had a huge pro day at BC Place where there's like 15 NFL teams. Crazy that like a U Sports program is getting that kind of NFL attention. Rarely ever happens, particularly with two guys. So as someone who's in the media booth, I was able to see some NFL scouts with me, which was very cool. But they have right next to where I'm sitting is a big sign that says reserved for Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's kind of like, what the hell is going on here?
Get
At
to
that
feel
point, I
pretty
knew
cool.
the Steelers were going to draft them. Oh yeah, it was cool. But at that point, I got the insider information the Steelers weren't going to draft him because the guy showed up, stood in the stairwell for 10 minutes and didn't sit down, then finally sat down in his chair, pulled out his iPad, wrote 2 things down, and left before the first quarter was halfway over. I'm like, they flew you out to Vancouver to do this? You got like all your documents ready.
Watch him be good now. Watch him be good in the NFL.
Yeah, the Lions traded up to get Manu in the 4th round. Like, there's clearly like, I mean, he's a huge guy. Like, he's like earned the starting left tackle job like pretty much immediately. And even like Theo Benedett, the other guy who's been named the top offensive lineman in Canada for the past 2 years. And if you look at some of those guys who have won that award in the past, have actually turned out to be pretty good NFL players. Akeem Hicks, he was on the defensive line, but he won that award. Turned out to be a Pro Bowler. Duvernay Tardif on the Chiefs before he retired to be a doctor was very good. He also won that award.
That's so funny.
Not to hype up that guy's too much, but anyways, that's my shout out. It's pretty cool to see a guy from my school go to the NFL, to hear my NFL draft podcast be like, "What the hell is the University of British Columbia?" And I'd be like, "That's me. I know where that is. You people are stupid."
Where the fuck is British Columbia?
Exactly. What the fuck is a BC? Yeah. Anyways, as a proud Vancouverite, it was a good week for me.
Oh God. I was gonna make the joke after you pointed out, like, Eddie's your coffee buddy too, right? Go for drinks from him because you go to the same Canadian college, which obviously means there's only 100 people there in your igloo, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's not like we have like 70,000 students at UBC. It's just like a small little backwater school.
Yeah, because it's backwater, back ice. Excuse you. But
oh yeah, because I ride my polar bear to school every day.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, like, I don't know, what other Canadian things can I throw in there, like drink maple syrup. You don't. Yeah, there you go. I don't know. Something. My shout out for the week is I don't even know how to set this up because it's really, really funny, but I found the entire thing hilarious. So this week, I made the very, very adult decision to buy a second pair of shoes. And I know that sounds crazy to some people because I know, and hear me out on this, because I'm the type of person when it comes to clothing where I do not buy clothes unless I need to, because I'm a cheap bastard.
Yeah.
And I hate buying clothing more than anything in my life. But finally I talked myself into it. I was like, I'm going to go buy myself a pair of Vans. Like, I want some comfy shoes. Because I got my work shoes, and I got one pair of work shoes that I have. I remember I was talking to a coworker once, and keep in mind, I have to occasionally go in front of a camera for my work. I have been, like, for some reason we were talking about, like, what I wear on camera, and they go, "Oh yeah, your old shitty shoes." And I went, "Yeah, those ones." Because they're old and shitty, but they work. They're dress shoes, so I still wear them. Yeah. I have those, and I have runners that also need replacing. So finally, I went, you know what? I want some casual shoes. So I walked my ass into this van store, and I tried on some shit, and lo and behold, I found the greatest shoes ever made by man, and they are the most comfy things I've ever felt in my life. Now they make me feel uncomfy when I'm not wearing shoes. And I wonder why the fuck was I not wearing Vans my whole life. So yeah, there you go. That's my shout out. Shout out Vans. They make some fucking banger shoes, apparently.
That was a left turn. I didn't have you shouting out Vans on my 2024 Play Bingo card.
Oh yeah. I was like, what the fuck? I spent way more money on Vans than I ever thought I would in my entire life.
And it was worth it, apparently.
It was. Oh yeah, fuck yeah. Those shoes are awesome. It's like, oh yeah, that's why I've had knee problems my entire life. There you go.
Yeah,
Figured
honestly,
it out.
I mean, I am all in the one pair of shoes gang. Like, I will wear them every single. Yeah. Like, so many of my friends are like, "You don't have a separate pair of shoes?" Like, no, I wear this. I've worn this same pair of black runners since I started university.
Oh yeah.
And it's I wear them every day, and the front is burned off because I like put it too close to a fire, and the back is all frayed, and it's like the
Yeah.
laces I've been
Well,
replaced
you know
7
what's the
times.
funny thing?
But
You know
they
what?
work.
I feel like I should show my run. I'm also going to replace my runners at some point here because I need to do that as well. But like my actual like things that I'd wear to work out are so bad at this point. They are gray. They look like somebody had their like. It looked like somebody like got burned on top of it. Like there was like some sort of like and you know what's the worst part? The secondary color is orange. So they are the ugliest shoes on the face of the earth. I wear them every single day because I don't care. But no, now I spent like I don't even want to say how much money I spent on these fucking shoes. I walked around them in the store and I looked at my girlfriend and just went, fuck, now I have to buy them. Because I actually don't want to walk out of this store in any other shoes because they were that perfect. So yeah.
Wow.
Shout out Vans. They actually, I don't know if I've ever had a product
A good
where
sales pitch.
Oh yeah. No, I don't know
Like,
if I've
I
ever
want to get Vans now.
Oh yeah, no, fuck yeah. They're legitimately. I did, although I will say, I did come home and my dad looked at my feet and just because they like. I should see if I can find a photo of them. They actually, I think they're really nice looking shoes. But I will say, Caleb, as someone who knows me, you would say those are the most probably exactly what you would expect me, basic Albertan, to wear. Do you know like canvas? Like canvas? Like have you? Do you
Oh
know
my
what
God,
I mean when I say
yeah.
that? Yeah. Like one second.
That sounds about right.
What are they called?
Even without having a picture of it in front of me, if you told me you bought canvas color shoes, like I wouldn't bat an eye.
Oh yeah. And they are the fucking shit. One second. I need to see if I can find them now because it's gonna. I don't want to.
Canvas covered shoes with a double in hand. Like
Oh
okay,
yeah.
that
You know what's the
checks
funny
out.
thing? I did have a double in hand. Just so
Yeah,
you
no,
know. Oh, I should see. I'm trying to see if I can find them. I'm probably not going to be able to, which is unfortunate. But they are so fucking comfy. Goodbye knee problems forever. I am now the. You know what's funny? I am still the person who's going to wear the same pair of shoes everywhere, but they're going to be some comfy and nice looking shoes. And in Alberta, I fit
there
right
you
in.
go.
So
There
there's
you
my
go.
shout out. My shout out is a pair of shoes, which I never thought I'd do in my entire life because I hate fashion as a
I was
whole,
gonna
but
say. I
yeah.
feel like this means a whole lot more because it's
This
like
is
I
me
would've
becoming an
never
adult.
expected you to shout out a pair of shoes. It's like this.
Yeah.
This is
I've had to
more
do-
important than a sponsorship.
I've
deal.
had to
Like,
I've had to do a lot of growing in the last year. I had to buy a pair of shoes so that I have more than one pair of shoes, and I had to start wearing ties, so I buy ties now. This is my life. I'm an adult now. This sucks. I want to
Yeah,
go back.
it's
I want
like-
to go back to being mad about spending $5 on V-Bucks or whatever.
yeah, it's like when you go to Home Depot and start getting excited. Ooh, that's a nice light fixture.
Oh,
Fuck,
don't
my
even.
child-
You know what's
my
funny?
childhood is dead.
You know what's funny? I had to. I got a new punching bag, which is also a very exciting thing for me. And me and my dad went through the process of trying to figure out how we were going to hang this thing up in the garage, because obviously still got to park in the garage. How are we going to hang this fucking 100-pound bag to a wall? And we started like experimenting with we looked around this fucking like, what was it? It was a Rona. We were looking at a Rona.
Yeah.
And we started like looking at we spent probably 20 minutes in this Rona looking at like different cranks. We still haven't figured it out yet. That's a good reminder. I gotta go do that so that I can punch things. But yeah, no, I'm gonna eventually have a crank on my wall and it's gonna be sick as hell. So there you go. There's my second shout out. Simon
I'm
Adult.
gonna eventually have a crank on my wall and it'll be
Yeah,
sick as hell. Your childhood is dead.
Yeah. Exactly. But Caleb, I'm gonna be able to crank it and then heavy thing go to wall. It's gonna be fucking sick.
Okay, buddy.
Oh god, I'm tired. This has been a long. We did this. We also recorded this late as hell for context. I'm tired. Ugh.
This is past Simon's bedtime.
Well, yeah, actually true. Alrighty, we'll watch somewhere else. I don't know. Well, don't watch somewhere else. Watch other stuff. That's what I meant to say. Go check out Fresh Take. I don't know. Go check out the TikTok. Tickety Talk. Go check out that. Yeah. I don't know. Podcast.
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 Is it warm ass? That's how we say
Warm ass. Oh God. There you go. Penix better have a warm ass. There's our there's our outro.
Oh yeah.
And remember, gotta do like the Matt Pat thing. And remember, Penix better have a warm ass. See you next time.
I think we found our new podcast outro for every episode. Every episode will end with and remember, Penix better have a warm ass, and we will never explain the context to this again.
Yeah, until one day when Trick Play has millions of followers and we have Penix on, and it's just like, hey Michael, and remember, you better have a warm ass. Oh God, what has this podcast become? Oh God,
It's become better.
it's become better. Oh my God, holy fuck. Yeah, now we gotta get Michael Penix on. What's the I'm gonna go this weekend. This weekend, I'm gonna go through the media line with the Atlanta Falcons. We're gonna get Michael Penix on our little hillbilly fucking like Canadian podcast. Oh, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be terrific. Michael Penix next week, and he better have a warm ass. That'll be the opening question when we interview Michael Penix.
Dude, what is your ass temperature?
Just so ass temp. just to really picture it for you. So so Mr. Penix, sir, we have this thermometer. Oh God, let's end this outro before we say something even fucking stupider. I'm gonna make a short out of that now because it's.
We have a sign off now. We can
exactly.
end the podcast. Like this is okay. Here we go. This is the last thing we say now on every episode of Trick Play. So this is get your final words in now. I'm gonna end the podcast.
Yeah, end it. Go.
Got anything else to say,
no,
Simon?
Caleb. Outro's all yours.
Remember, Penix better have a warm ass. See you next week.